Hey guys, Igor here, and today we're taking a look at Adobe Animate and why I think it's one of Adobe's most underrated drawing apps. And as a quick heads up, I do have this Wacom EK Controller that I'll be using, and I have all of my shortcuts mapped to it. I will show you the shortcuts. You don't need it to use the program, it's just what I'm used to. So here you go. So here I have my Wacom tablet properties opened up, and for the EK remote, under Animate, you can see the shortcuts that I have mapped to the different express keys. For the outer keys, I do undo, redo, delete, lasso. And then for the animating portion, I have an insert frame, convert to a keyframe, convert to a blank key, and then I have the modifier for shift, so I don't have to hold shift on my keyboard. For the inner keys, these four down the center, I have an eraser, a brush, an eyedropper, and a bucket. For the ring keys, on the top left, we zoom out. With the top right, we zoom in. And then again, I have a couple of frame keys, one for previous frame, one for next, and then the select tool. For the touch ring itself, I've disabled it. It's too finicky, and I don't like how it works, so I just don't use those keys. And there we go. These are my shortcuts that I'll be using within Animate. So here we are within Animate. Now let's take a look at why, in my opinion, this is one of the most underrated Adobe drawing applications. So along the bottom of the application here, we have the timeline, and this is what we're going to use to layer our drawings. This is obviously also used for frame-by-frame animation. We're just not going to worry about that right now. So here I've named the first layer the background layer, and here we have my canvas. Choosing the brush tool here, I am able to change out the fill, adjust the alpha or the opacity of said fill, have the brush type selection right here. These are custom brush shapes. You can delete them, you can edit them. Here we have the size of the overall brush head, and then the minimum size if you have pressure enabled. Here we have smoothing. If you turn this down, the line that you draw will be really jagged, and turning it all the way up, it'll auto smooth it for you. Here we have zoom size with stage. Having this enabled keeps the same brush stroke regardless of your zoom level. Disabling it will allow you to sketch large, and then when you zoom in, the brush will now be a lot smaller because you are closer in to the image itself. And then syncing settings with eraser is self-explanatory. So this is the drawing panel itself, but up here we have different brush modes. Here we have paint normal, paint fills, paint behind, paint selection, and paint inside. I use three of them: paint normal, paint behind, and paint selection. And I'm going to break down each one of these for you in this video and talk about why I like them so much. Here we have a setting for using tilt and using pressure sensitivity. I don't really mess around with tilt, but pressure sensitivity comes in really handy for a lot of different aspects. So let's go ahead and do a drawing. I'm going to zoom out a bit because I don't have my zoom size with stage enabled. Zooming out will allow me to work with a broader stroke, which oftentimes makes it easier to get a good sketch down. I could also just turn the brush size up, but I don't really want to do that. So here we have our silhouette for the character. This is going to be his visor, and then we've got the backpack. What I like about Animate is how easy it is to color everything. And here we choose a color, change to the bucket tool, and just drop the color in everywhere. So say you did that, the next step you might want to do is shadows and highlights. Well, that's the other thing I like about Animate. It makes that very easy to do too. So instead of, let's say, choosing this teal and grabbing something a little bit darker and more saturated and trying to go in and carefully not draw over the visor outline, we don't have to worry about that. We can go over to our different brush mode up here, and instead of paint normal, we're going to select paint selection. we're going to select this teal color, and then we're going to draw that darker, more saturated teal that we've selected alongside the visor here. I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to fill in the center area of that. And we can do the same for the body. So now it's in shadow, and the same thing for the backpack. And now that's shaded as well. For the visor, we can grab the visor color and go over and select a slightly darker color. Then select the visor, draw that darker line along the bottom, and then fill the empty space below it. We can do the same exact thing for the top of the visor. And now we have our highlight. So one thing to note with using different brush modes, let's say you forgot to switch out of paint selection and you're coming in here, you're like, I really want to add this green right here, and you draw and you get it perfect, and then you let go, it disappears. Don't panic. You just have to go back over to the paint selection and switch back to paint normal. But also we have this option for paint behind. What's nice about paint behind is sometimes you want to add to the same layer without touching whatever's on top of it. So let's say we wanted to add a little hat of some sort. So I'm purposefully going to use a different color from black, because if I do use black, it will, once touching the outer stroke, it'll just connect with it. So let's say we have this sort of hat. And as you can see, as soon as I put the stroke down and let it go, even though it's showing that it's going over the black line here, once I let it goes and drops it behind the character. So here we have our silly little hat. If I don't like it, I can select it, the different parts of it, and delete, and it didn't touch our character. Now, if you want to actually drop something behind the character, like a backdrop or a shadow that you want on a separate layer, then we have to go down to the timeline here. We have to create a new layer, and we can go ahead and drop it behind our character, grab a darker color, whatever, we can just grab this purple. Yeah, so if I have paint behind selected, it's not a big deal, because if there is nothing on that layer that's in front of whatever it is I'm painting, it'll just behave as though it's a normal brush mode. But once I paint something and then continue to try and paint as though it was a normal mode, let's say something like this, and I let go, I'll see that it drops behind because I still have that mode selected. So we can go back to paint normal, we can lock the background layer, and here I can enable it and disable it. By the way, here's another cool thing that you can do in this app. You can actually export directly to Illustrator and further modify your drawing in Illustrator. And in order to do that, we go over to File, Export, Export Image Legacy, and save it as an SVG file. Then this file that you've saved, you can open up in Illustrator, and it'll read just like an AI file that you can make adjustments to. It's really, really awesome. So there it is, guys. That was Adobe Animate for you. Hopefully you see why I actually really enjoy using this program, the simplicity of it, and being able to sketch out vector-based graphics really quickly for logo design or for a sketch idea. I think it's very useful, and the fact that you can then stretch these images or shrink them depending on what it is you want to use them for is another huge benefit. If you want to see more videos on Animate, I'd love to make more. I probably will do a couple of animation related ones, or just have the program not be the focus of the video, but you will definitely see me using it in the future because I do really enjoy using it. If you liked this video, hey, let me know down in the comments. Give me a thumbs up. I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one.